Hey there everyone! Welcome to this very special episode where we're heading to the Motor City to visit both Joe Louis Arena and Little Caesars Arena. This is Rinks Around the League. Let's go! Hey there, welcome to Rinks Around the League. I'm your host Jeff Nash, and on this episode, we're off to Detroit, Michigan to visit the homes of the Detroit Red Wings. And of course, we'll visit the state-of-the-art Little Caesars Arena, but I was fortunate enough to visit Joe Louis Arena on a few occasions. And there's so much hockey history inside that building, I think it deserves a little visit. So let's head there right now. Construction of the Joe Louis Arena began on May 16, 1977 and opened on December 12, 1979 at a cost of $57 million. It was owned by the city of Detroit. Its capacity changed over the years, but its final capacity was 20,027. Joe Louis Arena was named after a former heavyweight champion boxer who grew up in Detroit. There are countless stories that could probably be told about events that happened inside and outside that arena. Now, friends and colleagues of mine asked what Joe Louis Arena was like, and the best way to describe it is literally being put in a time machine, being transported back to the 1980s, and basically what it was like to go to a game back then. And to be honest, it was one of my favorite rinks around the league because it reminded me of going to games in Northlands Coliseum when I was a kid. There was no bells, no whistles, just a great sheet of ice and great hockey. And by no bells and whistles, I'm not joking. Up until the last season, the team skated out to full house lights. No pyro, no on-ice projection, just the introduction of the team, and out they came. And the reason why I loved it so much is, although not overly entertaining for a non-hockey fan, it didn't hide a crappy game of hockey behind t-shirt tosses, overly produced hype videos, or on-ice projection. It was all about the game on the ice. And it wasn't until playoffs that you actually saw fog and special effects, and of course that giant octopus. Speaking of octopus, it became a playoff tradition in Detroit to throw a live octopus on the ice surface at the start of a game. Why an octopus in Detroit of all places? It debuted during the 1952 Stanley Cup playoffs, and back then it only took 8 wins to win the Stanley Cup. And during that season, the Red Wings won 8 straight games to win the Cup, and the legend of the slimy good luck charm was born. Now obviously the nostalgic hockey fan in me really enjoyed the Joe. Yes, it's old, but it was a building full of character and hockey history. And you know what? There are 2 things that's really stuck out in that rink for whatever reason. One being the press box. It was totally crammed with not a lot of room to move. But that was kind of the charm of working in close proximity to everybody. I'm sure if I worked there every day, it would get kind of annoying, but because we would only visit there once a year, it was kind of a cool experience. The other detail that really stuck out to me for whatever reason about the Joe was that the players' benches were actually made out of wood. Now, a lot of modern rinks have benches that are made out of a combination of aluminum, steel, and puckboard. But the Joe actually had wooden benches. And I love this because it literally embodies the saying riding the pine, which of course is a hockey expression used to describe a player who doesn't play very much or is sat on the bench because they're in the bad books with the coach. Another great thing about the Joe is on the main concourse they had these statues of iconic franchise players like Gordie Howe. And these statues were so well designed that they were actually moved to Little Caesars Arena and they look totally at home. They don't look out of place at all. Another cool thing is when you walk into the Joe, into the bowl, you look up into the rafters and there's so many iconic banners up there. It's really cool. But one detail I didn't know about until I visited the Joe was that it had a blue roof. I had no idea. And I've done research and I still can't find why that color was chosen. So Red Wing fans, maybe you can fill me in why blue was chosen for that rink. The boards seem to be old school and almost permanently installed, not like the modern modular system all rinks use now. It was plywood installed with tension bars and poles to create the rink. They also had a bit of team history with the names of championships and MVPs spray painted on the walls by the locker rooms, and they also had an old Olympia off-ramp sign. Now, it was one of my favorite rinks to visit, but let's face it, it was getting old, and it didn't appear that a lot of money was being poured into renovations. It was showing its age, it was breaking down, and it seemed to be losing its comfort. In general, it was kind of like a dilapidated car that you love. It's getting old and it just wasn't worth putting more money into it. But fans in Detroit are very passionate about hockey, and I know you guys miss the Joe, so feel free to leave comments down below of the things that you miss about the Joe. But now that we visited the past, let's rocket into the future and visit Little Caesars Arena. Sit tight, we're heading there next.